It's time to get your property news, tips and tricks with a different pro every week. I'm Todd Sloan.
And I'm Jack Gibson.
And you're listening to Pizza and Property. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pizza and Property. We're your host, Todd Sloan.
And I'm Jack Gibson.
Jack, how's your week been? What have you been up to, mate?
Yeah, great. Found a good little development site.
Yeah?
It's got a house on it. It's corner block, but it's been marketed, so somebody's got plans approved, building plans.
Uh-huh.
But in the particular area that it is, there's a bit of an oversupply of townhouses.
Okay.
So what I'm thinking is it's been marketed to developers, but any developer's going to dismiss it because there's not a real great profit to be made in building townhouses on it.
Yep.
But what...
You've done like the back of envelope to... Yeah?
Okay. But what I can do is just split the backyard off and just create a new allotment, do a reno on the house that's on the front.
What kind of conditions that in? Are we talking structural, cosmetic, or
It's
what?
pretty rough, so they don't have any photos because it's been marketed as a development site. There's no photos of it, but I did drive by it. There's someone living in there. Lights were on. It didn't look too I wouldn't live there yet.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, somebody is living there.
All I'm hearing is potential. But maybe not. You got to do a little bit more looking into it.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Actually, just on that really quickly, can I just say, if you're looking at selling a house and you're thinking, yeah, pretty sure this is going to be knocked down, it's going to be a development site.
Yep.
But if inside's actually okay, get the photos done. Because I can tell you as a sales agent right now.
It appeals to a broader market, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Because otherwise, all you're going to appeal to is developers. And if you actually just listen to what Jack's just said, he's done the numbers, it doesn't work, that interest is just gone.
Yeah.
But if
then you almost cut out 100% of the market because somebody looking to do something else with it is not going to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So even if the photos don't look that good, but if it's livable, it's something that people can look at and go, yeah, okay, maybe we could spend 20, 30 grand here and get it up to scratch.
Yep.
Yeah, get the photos done of the internals.
Nice.
But so what are you going to do? You're going to put an offer on this?
Yeah,
or?
probably today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, brilliant. All right. Let us know how you go with that one. We have to check in next week on it.
Will do. How about you, Todd? What's been happening with you?
Been busy with the floors, actually.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, got everything sanded in the project house.
Yep.
Unfortunately, discovered a few stains in there that did not want to be or did not want to actually get sanded out.
Yep.
So we had to switch a little bit of a plan B. So originally the staining was going to be, just not an option as far as I was concerned for the numbers stacking up.
Yep.
But did a little bit more research and actually found this one. It was like I think it's Feast and Watson, I think.
Yep.
And this is not a paid plug at all. But they've got this one called Japan Black.
So it's dark.
Oh, like real dark.
Yep.
All right. Like first coat was pretty dark. Second coat, it's like black. It's not just it's kind of black. It's actual black.
Look good with crisp white walls though.
Exactly. And so just for anyone out there, if you're going to roll the dice like this on a renovation project, make sure you consult with the stylist first, which is exactly what I did. Got straight on the phone and said, look, this is my idea, because instead of it costing what it was going to cost before, like a lot of money, this was only going to cost about sort of $230 to do the whole floor. And I thought, this really makes sense. Plus, it hit all of the, I think it was like oil stains or something.
Yep.
And they're in high traffic areas. You couldn't just cover them up with a rug
kind of obvious.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So it either basically had to be covered or that they were just going to have these really ugly splotches on the floor. I don't know if they were like fixing motorbikes inside before or what was going on. But otherwise, it's coming together. It's looking really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I can't wait to show everyone the finished product. But we'll be posting a bit on social media.
Yeah, great.
Awesome, man. And who we got on the show today, Jack?
Today we've got Simon Pressley on. Simon is a buyer's agent, property analyst and founder of Propertyology.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been a follower of him for quite some time, and I've often jump on his website and I'll read his articles, and he's a very knowledgeable guy.
Extremely. It's not just about we think this area is good because ... It's like, here's a whole book on why we think it's good.
Yeah.
It goes into the detail.
Yeah. He loves data. He has previously been featured on Your Money, Your Call and Sky News Real Estate.
And Property Investor Magazine,
and
isn't
Property Investor Magazine, yeah. So really looking forward to jumping in and having a good chat with him.
Yeah, absolutely. This guy's got the credentials, and let's jump in and start picking his brain and see what wisdom we can pull out for you guys.
Excellent. Simon, you there?
Hey, Simon, how you going?
Yeah, good morning, gents. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot for coming. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Always enjoy sharing insights.
We've heard that you're laid up in a hospital bed at the moment.
Yeah, I've got, I think they call it old man's back. I turn 50 next year, and I've had a bad back probably since my mid-20s, but never at this point, just froze up on me. I literally can't stand, let alone walk. But anyway, they expect a full recovery, so we'll get there.
Yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time out to have a chat to us.
Absolutely. I've had a bit of a bad back in my early 20s as well. So I know that it's no easy thing to go through. And it happens from the silliest thing. Last time I threw mine out was putting my socks on. And it's all of a sudden like, you're in bed.
Yeah. And we kind of need our back, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
You use it for everything, don't you? You don't realise until it's...
Absolutely,
yeah. Excellent. We might kick off, Simon. Maybe we'll just get you to give us a brief rundown on your background and how you kind of got into property.
Yeah, okay. Look, to be honest, going through high school, I was one of those kids who had no idea what I wanted to do career-wise, so I just, head down, bum up, and studied as hard as I could, but for no particular purpose. I fell into a banking career. I sort of thought that I was always interested in numbers, and I thought back then banking was quite a well-accepted profession within society. I don't know that it holds the same status these days, but I fell into banking. I've always enjoyed helping people, more make decisions than anything else, and did that quite successfully for about 20 odd years. But I started to appreciate that whilst I was doing my best helping people set up liabilities properly, there was no one helping them in the asset side of things. And in the background, I'd always liked property. So I did several years of formal study, tried to learn a lot about the mechanics of what makes property markets do different things at different times. And I'm pleased to say that it's an absolute passion. It's not a challenge getting out of bed every day to go to work. It's what I love doing.
Yeah.
And when did the shift really happen for you? Is that something that's happened like gradually, or it was just this like, yep, this is what I'm doing now?
Yeah, it was funny enough. I made the decision as the GFC was unfolding. So, the loved ones around me were going, "What? You're crazy. You got a successful career in finance. Why would you try something that's completely untried?" Because not only am I a buyer's agent, but our business model, we were the pioneers of back then and what we do. So a lot of people thought that was risky, but I was growing increasingly frustrated dealing, day in, day out with the bureaucracy that comes with banks, like government in some ways. A lot of silly decisions, not a lot of common sense, but, the consumers powerless can't do a damn thing about it. And I sort of thought, I don't want to go for the rest of my life being miserable. Sort of person who'd like to take the timeline of destiny and really questioned what am I passionate about? And it was always property. I sort of thought, well, if I'm going to help people make proper investment decisions, I would be a fool to think that each and every year Brisbane, which is my home city, will always be the best place to invest. No location is always the best place to invest. So straight away I sort of thought, well, if I'm going to do this, anything I do, I've got to do it properly. How can I help people take advantage of the best places in Australia, no matter where it is on this big map? And that created all sorts of logistical challenges. But I love a challenge, and I sort of thought, well, that's because of all those challenges, that's why no one has ever established such a business model. What a great opportunity if we can find a way to do that. And 12 or 13 years later, we're still doing it. We're doing it very, very well. I think we've so far invested in about 16 completely different towns and cities across 5 different states over that period of time.
Yeah, wow. And that's one of the things that, you've got quite a strong reputation for is investing in regional cities. Like, can you actually run us through a few of the indicators that you might look for to suggest that a regional market is going to be the next hotspot to invest?
Yeah, look, I get this question probably more than anything else as an appreciator. I always find it fascinating. The short answer is the way to pick a regional location is the same way to pick a capital city location. But why I find it fascinating is I would say everyone other than perhaps Margaret Lomas and Terry Ryder, the three of us would be the only people on the entire planet who can put our hand on our heart and say, we actually take a critical look at every location in Australia.
Yep.
There's lots of well-meaning property professionals out there, but they're pigeonholed into their own home city. Or maybe one or two others to offer their clients a little bit of variety. If you think of it, that's as many locations as you could write on the back of a postage stamp. It's really not many. Australia is made up of 8 states, 8 capital territories, 8 capital cities, and there are 178 individual towns and cities that aren't capital cities but have a population of 10,000 people or more. So all up, we've got the 8 capital cities plus the regions come to a total of 185 individual investment locations. They're not suburbs. They're towns and cities in their own right. But most people would be flat out knowing anything about two or three of those. So I think investing is a decision, a bloody big one if we're honest, and key to making the best decision about anything, we must start by reviewing 100% of our options, but most people would consider less than 1% of their options.
Yeah, right. Okay, so for you, it's more so about making sure that you're making an educated choice based on everything that's available, rather than just saying, look, this is where I think you should put the money because this sounds really good, without actually looking at all the rest. It's I've actually looked at all of them, and these are the ones that we really think are about to go right.
Yeah, spot on, because no one has a crystal ball, no matter what asset class we choose to invest in. Even the weather forecasters, they don't have a crystal ball. There is a science to it. They'd have a better chance than you or I of forecasting what the weather might look like in a week's time, but it doesn't give a guarantee. But certainly as an investor, we want to give ourselves the most confidence possible, and knowing that property is a very emotive thing, whether it's the individual asset and we look at something and sort of say that's nice or that's not nice, that's an emotive thought process, or whether it's the individual town or city. That's a very subjective thing as well. There are plenty of people who love Sydney and Melbourne, for example, but I've met just as many people who can't stand those really big, congested, expensive cities. So it's a subjective thing, and as an investor, we need to do everything we can to remove all subjectivity and replace it with objectivity. So that's understanding what actually influences property markets, where do I get all that information from, and interpreting it and making a really informed decision.
I like that. Less subjectivity, more objectivity. That's good.
The thing I like about what you do is that you also publish quite a bit of the research that you do as well. So you can jump on your website and you've got some pretty in-depth analysis of different markets and kind of justification as to why you think that they might be a good place to invest. I found one the other day. I dug it up from, I think it was 2016, but it was titled "Baby Boomers Will Drive Regional Housing Demand." And for anyone listening, I'd highly recommend that you jump onto the Propertyology website and have a look at the blogs on there. But would you mind maybe giving us a little bit of an in-depth insight into the mechanics of why you feel the baby boomers are going to affect the property market moving forward?
Yeah, I guess, investing, we're all talking about the future, and again, we don't have a crystal ball, but it's a process of, I guess, thinking of where we are now and then and understanding different trends and the things that affect those different trends and trying to join the dots. So in respect to baby boomers, look, there's about, just rough figures off the top of my head, we've got something like 13% of our population is over the age of 65, which is a really big percentage, and that's growing at a rapid rate. We're living longer because of modern science and that sort of stuff, but sadly, society has never, ever taught financial literacy. Even professions such as accountancy, it doesn't teach financial literacy, it teaches tax.
Yeah.
So we all go through life. We work hard. Most people are above average intelligence, but yet according to the federal government, only 18%, 1/8, are financially independent by that magical figure of 65 years of age. So that's to me a horrifying statistic, and it's not because the 82% who aren't financially independent aren't intelligent or didn't work hard. It's just that they did not prioritise planning for the future. And so I guess being conscious of that, I sort of thought, as these people get to that stage of their life, they're going to have to make some pretty difficult decisions for the baby boomer generation. Even if they own their family home does not generate $1 of income. If there was no mortgage on the home, it would probably still cost the occupant about $15,000 per year for things like council rates and insurance and some basic repairs and maintenance. The age pension is only $33,000 per couple. So sort of stepping through this reality that sadly most baby boomers still haven't done that themselves, and thinking, what are the options? And for a lot of people, the best option for them will be to sell wherever their family home is and relocate to a lot more affordable location. I'll make a scenario up. Let's say we lived in Sydney or Melbourne and had an $800,000 family home. We're in our 60s and it was debt-free. If we sold that $800,000 home and moved into something that's of comparable quality, but only cost us $350,000 to $400,000, and believe me, there are dozens of places in Australia where that can be achieved.
Yep.
You then got an extra $400,000 or $450,000 worth of cash left over to supplement your income. So that's what we're referring to with that particular baby boomer report.
Yeah.
And then we identified lots of places throughout Australia that have good quality healthcare facilities, a good lifestyle, and affordable housing.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts out of interest, Simon, on the reverse mortgage? I read an article in AFR a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying there's going to be a little bit more of an upswing on those now for this very reason, just because a lot of baby boomers' wealth is just tied up in the biggest asset, which is their primary place of residence. Are you for that or against that, or do you even have a stance?
Sadly, I don't think Australia's got a choice other than to have that because of the staggering statistics I just mentioned about 82% of people in retirement age aren't financially independent. So there needs to be things like that. But a reverse mortgage, for the listeners who are not quite sure what it is, it's essentially you've already got your home. You might still have a small mortgage on it, but the banks advance further money to you against that equity, but you don't actually have a repayment per se because you're in your retirement years and don't have income as it is. So, but then eventually when you pass on, the bank will recoup their money then through the sale of the asset, including their loan that way. But it's a big litigation minefield. There's lots of hoops you've got to jump through, and you can't go and take out $500,000 or something like that out of a reverse mortgage. They sort of drip feed money to you each and every year.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, right. So it's something that it's, I suppose, inevitable by the sounds of it. Yeah.
But for a lot of people, because we just don't. Too many people live in the here and now, and that's their right, I suppose. But I think for most people, the rude shock will become when they get much older in years, and then they realise they made some poor choices. But by then, there'll be no time to do anything about it. So that's actually my motivation to do what I do for a living. My parents are in their retirement years. Unfortunately for them, they've never owned a property in their life. They were never taught financial literacy. Dad was in the army, so we moved around a lot, and a house was provided through his employment. But sort of growing up and realising that, and sort of thinking that that's not what I want, and also that everyone else around me were pretty much in the same sort of situation. I sort of thought that's not right. Society is capable of a lot better than that. I've never had any faith in any level of government doing something, serious to address that. So I sort of thought, well, I'm definitely going to do it for my family, and it can be it's a good feeling helping others try to do that as well.
Yeah.
They say you can't put an old head on young shoulders, but it sounds like that's exactly what you're on a mission to do, really.
And look, it's not that hard. We've all probably, young or old, I'm sure we've all sort of set ourselves the occasional goal and sort of said, I really want one of whatever it is, an outfit or a car or whatever, and have made some sacrifices to realise that goal. But human beings are capable of a lot of things if they've really put their mind to it, including becoming self-funded retirees. It's not necessarily about becoming wealthy.
Yeah.
I call it planting a seed in investment properties, putting a seed in the ground knowing that it's not going to bloom overnight. But if you put it there and leave it there long enough, and if you put it in some really good quality soil or good investment credentials, then over time it'll eventually bear fruit and we can plant another seed. Now, we should be on a mission for the roughly 45 years of our life that we spend in the workforce to plant sufficient seed so that later on we've got enough fruit that we can feed ourselves from.
I guess the proof is in the pudding. In like you were saying that people get to the retirement age and 80 to 90% of their wealth is in their own occupied residence. It goes to show that property investing, that's kind of proof in the pudding, isn't it? That if you own multiple assets, multiple homes, and you get to that age, then you've got a surplus in.
That's right, and certainly don't get me wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with owning your own home. I think there are a lot of people that have an interest in investing but feel they have to pay the family home off first before they invest. Those listening thinking, if that's you, complete stop, the sooner you plant the seed, the sooner it can grow. There are plenty of responsible low-risk strategies where you can still be paying off the mortgage on the family home, but at the same time, chipping away at building your own property investment portfolio. Not only can you do that, I'd put it to you that you should do that, because it does take a long time for properties to grow to a sufficient value, but the time when that growth starts doesn't commence until you put the seed in the ground.
Yeah, and that the whole age-old adage of property doubles in value every 7 to 10 years, whilst historically that might be correct, it doesn't just you don't look at your watch, all right, 10 years from now, it's going to be double.
Not a linear.
Exactly. It works in those different cycles and exactly where those cycles are.
The 7 to 10 year time frame, it does get thrown around a lot, doesn't it? And it is very misleading. There have been some locations that have doubled in value in periods of 7 to 10 years. There are others, including right here and now today, that it's still worth the same value as what it was 7 to 10 years ago. And no location is immune to that. Sydney had a period from early 2004 through to 2009. The median house price was exactly the same over that same period of time. So, I've literally studied Australian property market history, and the evidence has taught us that no matter how big, no matter how small, every location in Australia has had periods of significant growth. They've all had downturns. Again, Sydney and Melbourne have just had a very significant one. And they've all had lots of years where not much has happened. But every location is capable of doing good things. The most important question is when to invest in each individual location, because they've all got different fundamentals. They'll be doing different things at different times. If we just think about the last 5 years, Australia's best performed property market was Hobart by a long street. We started investing in Hobart before any growth started occurring. But some other really strong markets over the last 5 years aren't the big profile locations. They include places like Geelong. Byron Bay is officially Australia's most expensive city, but it's ranked number 73 in terms of total population size.
Wow.
The last 3 years, the best markets have been places like Launceston, Orange, Ballarat. Bendigo is doing well. Every single year, right throughout Australia, it is usually the lower profile locations that perform the best, but they don't get the media airplay because the newspapers are written from a journalist in a capital city, often in Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah, right. Okay. Would you mind actually sharing a couple of key points for our listeners? If they want to do a bit of due diligence themselves, keep track of some markets. I mean, I'm assuming you've got quite a comprehensive system of different indicators that you would keep track of. But what are a few key points that they could maybe look at if they wanted to pick a few towns and keep track of themselves?
Yeah. Well, the first overarching bit of advice I give to everybody is place a lot less emphasis on the bricks and mortar. That's often what attracts people to property. How something looks, that doesn't make it grow. It looks how it looks. What has the biggest influence on a property market is local economic conditions. So if you really want to understand property, you need to take an active interest in the things that influence the economy of each individual town and city. That will always be where the most valuable information is.
Okay.
Now, the process that Propertyology follow, I guess, think of Australia and all the locations as one big search engine. And progressively, we've got to eliminate a whole heap of locations until we get to one. So our search engine starts with 8 capital cities and 178 regional or non-capital city locations. The first ones we eliminate are the locations that are the one industry town. They will probably have periods of growth, but they're also a very volatile, high-risk location, so we eliminate those.
So you never jump behind Port Hedland?
No, that's a great example. We would invest there, but we know that Port Hedland will have many years where it will probably perform better than anywhere else in Australia, but no one can give you the date to put on your calendar on the fridge and say, sell before this date, because that's when they're going to be a downturn, and often in those one industry towns it can be a pretty big downturn. So
makes sense.
That's the easy starting point, is to eliminate the one industry towns, whether it's one industry, mining, tourism, agriculture, whatever. Eliminate those, but you're still going to be left with, maybe 130 locations left. So the next ones that we eliminate are locations that are already performing very strongly or have recently completed a strong growth cycle. So Sydney and Melbourne, for example, finished their growth cycles 2 years ago. We will give Sydney and Melbourne zero attention as an investor for many, many years, because history has taught us that growth cycles only come around once every sort of no shorter than 8 years and as long as 15 years. So if a location's recently had one, the odds are it's going to be a long time before it has another one. Then what we look for is on the supply side of things. Supply is a growth suppressant. So if there's too much supply in a market today, don't expect it to grow. Similarly, if there's an overstimulated construction industry, there might not be too much supply now, but if there are excavators everywhere and cranes in the sky,
It's coming on the market.
Yeah, that's right. They're coming soon, and that was the biggest cause of Sydney and Melbourne's recent downturn. Is during their boom, their construction industry got overstimulated and built a lot more than what the growing populations of Sydney and Melbourne needed, and it will take some years before that is absorbed. So finishing off our search engine, we're progressively eliminating lots of locations. Once we get down to a cluster of locations to the left, we focus on what the most important industries are to their local economies, and then we, like what a share investor would do, we make an educated assessment as to which industries we feel have the healthiest outlook. Because when industries expand, when they grow their workforce, what that does within a local community is it boosts confidence, it puts pressure on wages, and it increases the chances of someone relocating from where they can't get a job to a place that they can get a job. And ultimately, the primary driver of demand is strong economic conditions. So going back to the Hobart story, when we started investing there in 2014, the state had just come out of recession. So we didn't invest there because it had strong economic conditions. We invested there because we were very confident that the economy was going to improve significantly in years to come. Here and now today, Hobart, officially according to the ABS, has the strongest economy of all states and territories in Australia, and it's no coincidence that Hobart's property market has outperformed every location in Australia. So it's all about the economics.
It sounds like you really subscribe to that Warren Buffett saying that be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful.
Yeah, great. It's a great quote. Warren's got a lot of wonderful quotes. That is one. I guess a version of that. Ignore the consensus. I do. It often seems that whatever we're recommending to our clients is the opposite to what the broader media are saying, and that's not done to be different. It's just I don't feel a lot of people really understand property, and they get a sense of confidence by following what everyone else is doing or doing what the online material says. But sadly, the consensus are often wrong. The consensus didn't pick Hobart. The consensus didn't predict the big downturn in Sydney and Melbourne. The consensus was saying for 5 years that Brisbane was going to boom. That's my home city. If anyone wants Brisbane to boom, it's me. We never thought it would boom. It hasn't boomed. So ignore the consensus and focus on what the fundamentals say. And often the fundamentals will point you in a different direction to where everyone else is going. That have trust in those fundamentals, because there's no emotion attached to that.
Yeah, can I just say to all of our listeners right now, if you're looking at where to buy, and this is something that you're actually going through at the moment, rewind the last 5 minutes and listen to what Simon said again, because that really is absolute gold, breaking that down in a really easy step-by-step manner. And whilst that might not give you every single answer for what to buy, where to buy, that's at least putting you on the right track.
Narrow it down, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But look, while we're on this topic, can I actually just ask you, after dodging this controversial negative gearing legislation with the last election, we're now in some kind of uncharted territory with the lowest cash rate in history. What do you really see our biggest challenges actually being for property investing coming up in 2020?
Our biggest challenge is probably ourselves. We've become an increasingly negative society. I think there'd be lots of people living in different countries looking in on Australia saying, my God, what happened to you blokes? You used to be so happy and upbeat, but all you do is whinge. There's actually a lot of things that, and we've become worse than what the Poms used to be referred to, I think. There's actually a lot that we should be excited about. Looking, some things that come to mind in no particular order, but our federal budget's about to return to surplus for the first time, I think, in about 12 years. We've got the lowest interest rates that any human being alive has ever seen. And we're talking about property. Well, before we buy the property, we must buy the debt. The debt has never been cheaper. And in every location that Propertyology is investing in at the moment, the rental yields are quite a bit higher than the interest rate, the expense part of our profit and loss column. So, I mean, we're seeing every day properties we're buying sort of between let's call it $380,000 and no more than $500,000. And some people are buying these properties with as low as a 10% deposit, and it costs not a dollar of their own money each year to hold that property. I mean, that has never been seen before, and it is so exciting. The outlook for our economy is a lot healthier than what I think the general public give it credit for. We're in the Asian century. Australia is this massive, massive big island that's full of goodies that Asia wants, whether it's our commodities, whether it's our agriculture, whether it's our tourism, our international students. We've got it all, and the smart business owners realise that, and they're expanding their workforce to supply a lot more of that. What that does is it creates jobs and creates demand for accommodation. So it's an exceptionally exciting time, but I think it's become too easy for us to look at the glass half empty.
Yeah, okay, that's a really interesting outlook. It wasn't where I was expecting you to go with that question. So, really,
where were you expecting me to go?
Well, I suppose more of an economic standpoint, really, rather than a mindset one. But I actually really like that. So it's more about making sure that we look at the glass half full, make sure that we actually enjoy the prosperity that we've got, and realise that we are doing better than we think we are.
Well, no one's going to do it for us. We will end up later on in life with what we deserve, I believe. So if we get caught up in the negative rhetoric that those around us get absorbed in, we'll end up in a place that we'll look back on and go, did I use my time wisely? I think I was capable of a lot more than that. So it's always glass half full. The challenges are always going to be around us, but sometimes behind those challenges is also an opportunity.
Love it.
How much impact do you think that the media has on the way that markets move?
A heck of a lot. Look, unfortunately, I need to consume lots of material through newspapers and online stuff each day. Some of it property related. Unfortunately, a lot of it economic related because they have such a big influence on things that can trickle down to property markets. But a lot of it's negative.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, because they've read it, they treat it as gospel. We need to be better than that. We need to, realise from time to time that just because I've read that doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean it will happen. Or even if it does happen, you can sit back and pout the bottom lip. It's not going to change anything. It all comes back to, well, what are you going to do about it?
So I was having a chat with a good mate the other day. He's not a big investor. And I was kind of explaining to him the difference between a positively geared property and a negatively geared property. There's a lot of debate around this. Would you mind maybe just breaking down the difference between positively geared and negatively geared properties?
So the definition is that first we break down those two words, positive and gearing. Gearing means debt. Yep. And because property is so expensive, it's often purchased with debt. The positive or negative relates to our cash flow of that property. Now, any property can be positively geared or negatively geared. It might be a $400,000 property, and someone might purchase that with a 50% cash deposit. The gearing level is therefore low, and the property will be cash flow positive for them, meaning their rental income will be more than the expenses going out. The biggest expense will always be interest on our loan. Mm-hmm. Conversely, someone else might buy that same $400,000 property, but it might be 100% geared. So they might be borrowing 80% against the investment property itself, and the other 20% they might have borrowed against the equity in the family home. So that property would be negatively geared, meaning that the cash flow that property produces each year is at a loss. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think the objective for anyone investing in property is not whether it's positive or negatively geared. The objective should be using the best information possible to buy an asset that gives us confidence that it's going to be worth much more in years to come. So it's the capital growth that everyone is after. unfortunately, no one can tell us how much it'll grow by or when it'll grow. That's why research is so important. The cash flow part of it, negatively or positively geared, is important, but I think it's a secondary consideration.
Yep.
Why it's important is investing needs to be safe. So we should stress test before we make any of these investment decisions. We should stress test it. For example, we work on receiving rent for 48 weeks of the year, not 52.
Yep.
We build buffers in, so we sort of say the interest rate today might be 3.5%, but what if they went up 3 or 4 times over the next few years? That might be unlikely in this current environment, but at some stage they will. So we stress test things and then look at our budget profit loss statement and sort of go, now, can I support that? Does that look okay? And how is my household budget? What are the things that might change there? Am I likely to still get those bonus incomes? Is my wife still likely to work? Are we going to be planning on having a child soon? If you do all that planning up front, you can then move forward with confidence, knowing that something probably will change, but you'll be okay, and you're not pushed into a corner where you've only got one choice, and that's to sell this asset. Because often Murphy's Law will work against us in that time, and it's probably going to be the worst time in that market to sell that asset. So respect the cash flow, but focus on the research that gives you the confidence for future capital growth, and that's the economic stuff.
Yeah. So positive gear, negative gear in your mind is more around having security around the income coming from it, rather than I want my $50 a week, $20 a week positive geared sort of surplus. Is that about right?
Yes. Yeah. Because if some people do unfortunately make a decision to buy a property today because it's generating positive cash flow, but at the end of the day, that positive cash flow, we might be talking $1,000 a year or $2,000 a year. Now that's better than not having it, but no one can retire off $1,000 or $2,000 per year, can we? We're going to need lots and lots of properties that are generating $1,000 or $2,000 positive cash flow a year to retire from. So how do we get lots and lots of properties? Well, we need the ones we already own to grow. Mm-hmm. So we've got deposits to repeat the exercise. So the focus should always be on the capital growth, and having a manageable cash flow for each property. We know some people before meeting us who have bought a property that might require $10,000 or $15,000 of their own money each year to support one property. Now they might be saying that I could afford that. Great, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. If you break it, I call it the small fish are sweeter. If you break your money down and buy multiple more affordable properties, your cash flows will be better, and you'll take advantage of more capital growth opportunities because you've put money into more markets. But you've also mitigated your risk. No one has that crystal ball. If there is a market downturn, say like Sydney saw in late 2017, there wouldn't have been many people in 2015 that saw that coming. But that could happen anywhere. But if you've got multiple more affordable properties in different markets and an unexpected downturn happens to you, it's very, very unlikely that it's going to happen across all of your markets.
Yeah. It really is risk mitigation, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you think about it, that's what a share investor does. They might have a parcel of Commonwealth Bank shares, a parcel of BHP shares, a parcel of Woolworths shares. They're not only different companies, but they're also located in different industries. Yeah. So when we're investing in property, we're investing in multiple properties instead of multiple companies. We're investing in multiple states. And we're also picking locations that have a completely different economic profile when we compare one city to the next.
Yeah. So positively and negatively geared comes secondary. You'd say, so the Holy Grail is a property that is picked to increase in capital value based on your research, and then the positively geared or negatively geared comes second to that. If it's positively geared, then
cool,
that's
but
good.
That's not the focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you put a bigger cash deposit down, it'll be positively geared. But that doesn't determine how much it's going to grow by, does it?
No.
What will determine how much it's going to grow by is where you actually bought that property and the conditions, the environmental conditions in that market at that time. What was the level of supply like? What was the economic conditions like? How affordable is that asset? Is it a really expensive asset that not many people can afford to buy? Or is it what I call the meat and potatoes asset that anyone who can transact in property could afford to buy that. And that's where the competition is going to be created in the years to come.
I like it. Okay, cool. Well, if you could speak to 20-year-old Simon and just impart one piece of advice, what would that be?
20-year-old Simon, that's an interesting question. I'll take it back to where we started this discussion. I said when I was in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. If I knew at the age 20 what I know now, I probably would have chosen some sort of commerce business degree. Because everything that I've learned over the last sort of 30-odd years is self-taught. There's a lot of stuff I've learned that you've never learned in university, mind you. But if I'd done that sort of degree, it might have fast-tracked my development.
Yeah. Okay. Education. I like it. Very nice. Well, Jack, would you like to do the honours with the most important question?
We're down to the pointy end, Simon. So this is a question we ask all of our guests. Simon Pressley, what is your favourite pizza?
My favourite pizza? I'm a super supreme sort of guy. I like meat and like lots of topping, olives, mushrooms, that sort of thing.
Nice.
Probably with a crispy base.
Yep.
Nice.
Brilliant.
And any favourite place up in Brizzy that you get it from?
Pizza Capers, because they're home deliver. Lazy. It's often a Friday night when it's been a busy week and can't be bothered cooking and hoeing into a nice pizza. It just takes me 2 seconds on the iPhone and 20 minutes later it's at my front door. It's pretty hard to beat, really. Put a glass of red in front of me and we're happy as.
Nice. Taste and convenience. Can't top it. Beautiful. Well, Simon, thank you so much for coming on the show today, especially with what you're going through with your back, mate. I've just got a picture in my head of you sort of all like laid up in a hospital bed. So we really, really appreciate you taking the time for this.
Thanks for having me on.
I can just picture some nurse standing kind of at the doorway, just hearing you in-depthly speaking passionately about property and she thinking...
I must have been a couple of times to see how the doors open and nurses have wandered in and given me this look as to say, what the heck is he talking about?
Look, if anyone wants to find out more about you or get involved with Propertyology, whereabouts can they find you and whereabouts can they, basically learn more?
So propertyology.com.au. It is a minefield of research reports, data-heavy reports. I write all of those. That's a great place for investors to learn. And if you want to take that one step further and engage their services, there's a contact us button there. We'd be happy to partake in a no obligation chat over the phone and see where things head from there.
Brilliant. I highly recommend jumping on your website. You've got some brilliant articles on there.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for coming. Bye.
Whoa, Todd, how'd you find that?
That was really good. I know I say this about everyone, but actually I'm pretty happy with everyone we get on. But Simon was he was a different kind of good. The guy really went into the details, but I loved his straightforward and sort of really personal demeanor.
Yep.
I mean, the guy's laid up in a hospital bed right now. He's taken the time out to chat with us, but even the way that he was just going through things, like when he's firing on all cylinders, this guy's going to be a superstar.
Second nature to him.
Yeah, absolutely. But I really think my biggest takeaway was probably when he split things into those 3 groups when it was talking about what you should look
at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just sounded really straightforward, but you can see how people would trip themselves up if they didn't do things like that. It's like, oh, but we ticked all these boxes. Like, okay, but did it have a self-sustaining economy? Yeah. Oh, we ticked all these boxes, but when was the last time it went through the growth cycle?
Yeah.
Like, I really, really like that.
Each point that he made, like, is very logical. You can, makes sense.
Absolutely. How about you, Jack? What was your biggest takeaway?
Just he highlighted the misconception between capital cities and regional locations and the capital growth. So a lot of people think that regional locations don't get that capital growth that you'll get in the big cities. And he kind of dispelled that.
I've never understood that either. Because I've talked to people, like being someone that's bought in regional cities, well, capital and regional.
Yep.
But when I was buying regional, people were all telling me, well, that never goes up in value.
Yeah.
And my first response was, that's why they still cost £2,000 like they did back in the 50s. It's like, well, no, they don't. Of course they don't, because they do go up. Like it might not go up in exactly the same kind of percentages, but as what Simon's saying, you do your research right.
Pick that right spot.
And sometimes it can go up even more than some of the capital cities.
Yeah, well, I think he made a good point. Launceston and Sydney over the last 15 years, Launceston's outperformed Sydney.
Yeah.
in capital growth.
And this is where it all comes back to doing the due diligence and doing the research. And I reckon if you don't want to do the research yourself, don't have the time to do it, Simon might be someone that's actually worth having a chat with.
Yeah, or if not, jumping on the website and reading through all of his blogs.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was probably going to take your call even if he's laid up in a hospital bed, as we've just found out.
Legend of a guy.
Absolutely. Well, look, thank you all for listening. And again, as we always say, if you've got any questions, give us a call, give us a text, give us a whatever you want to get in contact with, Facebook, Instagram, all the social medias. Thanks again, and